Hello, everybody. I'm Michael Monaco.
And I'm Bobby Salveson, and we are the Hazmat Guys, bringing you the knowledge and insight to make your job a little bit easier.
Before we get into the show, let's thank today's sponsors.
The Hazmat Guys would like to thank our sponsor, Rigaku Analytical Devices. Rigaku Analytical Devices reduce fluorescence interference when identifying unknown chemicals using the 1064 advantage of the Progeny Rescue. Visit rigakuanalytical.com to learn more.
HazSim training systems have been in use across North America since 2011. Hazmat teams, firefighters, confined space specialists, and industrial safety trainers alike have found the value in the HazSim Pro system. HazSim brings real information-based decision-making to students from instructors safely and realistically. No more burning up sensors or pretending a 3x5 card is a meter in training. Visit hazsim.com for realistic training solutions.
FLIR has just announced a new educational resource for first responders. Check out FLIR.com/primed for video training, downloadable checklists, and street truth from experts in CBRNE and hazmat fields.
Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of the Hazmat Guys. Today we have our interview with Chad Hawkins. Bob, who the hell is Chad Hawkins?
I have no idea. I don't know. You know, I'm joking. He was referred to us by one of his colleagues, and it was about an interesting run they had out in Oregon. And I was very interested, and I really wanted to bring this to our listeners. So, first off, welcome, Chad.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Give us a little background on yourself.
Sure. Spent 15 years in California in the fire service. Just recently, as of 2015, moved up to Oregon. I'm the Hazmat Rail Program Coordinator for the Office of State Fire Marshal, which is a branch of the Oregon State Police. I'm a hazmat technician. I've done some tank car specialist training associated with the railroad, and that's kind of what I do. I teach first responders and hazmaters kind of the ins and outs when it comes to railroad stuff and tank cars.
Cool. So what exactly was this run? Just give us a brief overview and we'll start peeling it away as like an onion.
Sure. So it was a Bakken Crude oil train derailment. 16 cars essentially derailed. 3 of them ended up being involved with fire, and it was about a 9-day incident from cradle to grave, from the fire starting, the environmental aspects, to it finally being cleaned up and kind of everything put back the way it was.
Wow, that is amazing. It only took 9 days as if it never even happened.
I wouldn't go as far as it never even happened, because obviously there's a lot of groundwater monitoring still going on today, due to some of that runoff of the crude or whatnot. But yeah, the actual train was up and running in about 3 days. That track was open again while folks were still working around the damaged rail cars.
Wow. Can you give us a rundown of what happened to cause the incident? Like what was...
Yeah, sure. So the Federal Railroad Administration did their investigation, and the preliminary result is that there were some bolts that essentially held the track in place that had failed. Multiple of them had failed over a section of track, and it caused the railroad track essentially just to spread, and those cars just derailed. They were going about 26 miles an hour at the time, so it wasn't a high-speed derailment by any means.
Wow. Ooh, I guess you don't consider 26 miles an hour to be high speed, but man, that's a lot of oil moving. That's a lot of momentum.
Sure.
So
absolutely.
when you guys got on scene, well, what did the hazmat teams do for air monitoring? What was it like when they arrived?
Sure. So in the state of Oregon, we have 13 regional hazmat teams. So the Fire Marshal's office coordinates those teams and basically provides the equipment, the training, the response vehicles, and they place them with fully 24-hour staffed fire departments across the state to respond with. So anyways, our hazmat team that covers that particular area was about an hour away. The local fire department actually was there for the first hour. They used the ERG, got the placard, did their size up, made the appropriate evacuations of the area, and then essentially waited till the hazmat team showed up. The hazmat team shows up, and that's when kind of that IAP or that plan of attack was developed on what the kind of priorities were with that incident.
Wow, so the operations level or the first responders themselves, they pretty much did everything by the ERG book, opened it up and followed it step by step.
Yeah, absolutely. Half-mile evac radius, they saw that 1267 placard for the Bakken crude oil or the crude oil, and made the appropriate evacuations, got everyone within that area out very quickly. It was a pretty smooth process, well done by the local first responders, kind of preparing that incident for when the hazmat team and the other members of Unified Command showed up to kind of assist them with that ICS framework development.
It's always good when a plan like that comes together.
Absolutely.
So, what did you guys? The hazmat team. I don't know how I should describe this.
Sure.
The hazmat team shows up. Okay, they get off the rig. You have stuff that's on fire. What are they monitoring for? What are you guys doing for air monitoring? Because this isn't like a small little incident. Like this is a tremendous.
Sure.
Fire.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. So. Each tank car carried that day 28,000 gallons of Bakken crude oil. It was coming from North Dakota. So didn't know quite how much we had on the ground at that point. Myself, I was in a liaison position, so more of a subject matter expert liaison position between all the local entities at scene, representing the Fire Marshal's office. Our hazmat team showed up. Their first priority is kind of doing that damage assessment, taking a good look at the incident, doing a 360, evaluating the tank cars they could see from afar. What kind of damage were they? Were they involved with fire? The evacuations had been made, so then those second steps that were done were doing some plume modeling while they were doing some of that damage assessment. They have the resource folks back at the rig doing that plume modeling. And then taking some general area readings with the PID, looking for those benzenes or whatnot that are coming off the crude oil and the H2S or whatnot. But unless you were right down in the thick of it, right near the incident, the true hot zone, readings were slim to none.
They had broken open. They were on fire. Was there any kind of booming or damming or diking that was being done?
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the things there's been a lot of talk about Bakken crude oil and these derailments over the last couple years. And so one of the things that's real prevalent with these incidents is you have to cool those exposed cars. So prior to putting in that cooling water on those exposed cars so we don't have more containers fail, you have to make sure all those dry creek beds, understand where that water is going to go once you start applying it, because it's going to mix with that crude oil and it's going to want to go downhill, and what's downstream from that, And for us, about 300 yards away was the largest river in the state of Oregon. So it literally, like 300 to 400 yards away, was the Columbia River, which has a hydroelectric dam, super large fishery for the area. A lot of water sports are on it, a lot of windsurfing. So it's a major revenue kind of thing for the state of Oregon. It's very important in the state of Oregon.
Well, I guess you're pretty lucky that you don't have too many people that are environmentally friendly out by you to make it. We have a lot of folks that care about the environment up here and spend a lot of time trying to prevent things like this. Yes, can imagine.
So, Chad, I want to get a little bit into the fire aspect of this.
Sure.
Was the fire, all right, so you pull up on this thing, you got the fire coming down. Was it more of a three-dimensional fire, or was it like pool fires? Was it vertical going to horizontal? Was it spreading? How did it look?
So it was definitely a large pool fire. At the end of the day, you can kind of figure out. We ended up having about 50,000 gallons of Bakken crude oil pooled up underneath these tank cars. And the problem was not necessarily that three-dimensional fire, but it was that the car that was heavily involved, the one in the middle of this derailment, was on its side. So when that pool fire developed, it burned out the gasket on the manway, and so that product just free-flowed right out of that, kind of just adding to our problem or whatnot. So it was definitely a pool fire, pretty large. I would say about 50 feet by 50 feet, maybe a little bigger, a little less, give or take here or there. But yeah, definitely a lot of fuel for this fire.
I'm assuming you guys use foam, right? I mean, what and without, I don't really care about dropping names and everything, but what kind of foam did you use?
Yeah, so the railroad, both Burlington Northern and Union Pacific provided us 8 foam trailers in the state of Oregon about a year and a half ago now. For an incident like this, the high hazard flammable trains in the Bakken and ethanol's coming through. We have AR AFFF foam trailers. They hold anywhere from 250 to 1,200 gallons depending on which one it is and where they're located. But we actually didn't apply foam until about 10 hours, 11 hours into the incident because, again, you need to cool the product inside the cars. And we really wanted to make sure that we had cooled the product as much as we can in those exposed cars and then get into the ones that were actually involved. It ended up only taking about 10 gallons of foam to extinguish this 50,000-gallon Bakken crude oil fire.
Wow. Wait, say that again?
Took 10 gallons of AR AFFF foam to put out that fire at the end of the day at about 2 o'clock in the morning.
10 is in 10.
That is in 10, sir.
Wow.
Oh, my God.
That's surprising. I would have think it would be like 1,000 gallons to do that.
Yeah. One of the things, associated with the incident, just like anything, is when you have a bunch of product like that on the ground and you're trying to evaluate, your kind of offensive, defensive, non-intervention tactics, you got to see what's going to, work best for you. Is putting 1,000 gallons of AR AFFF on the ground going to be your best option? What about reignition and things like that? Or is it going to let some of this product burn off and cool those exposed cars, kind of keep that scene contained? And when that fire gets into that equilibrium or lazy state, then go ahead and snuff it out with some good foam.
Because the heat would be down and it wouldn't burn it off as well.
Correct, because you're going to be able to extinguish that pool fire with the foam, but you still do have a little 3-dimensional fire near the pressure relief device and the manways where that product was still spilling out that you're not necessarily going to be able to extinguish right away.
So now I'm thinking about the water, right? So
yes, sir.
Before the foam, you're using the water and you're trying to cool these tanks down. And these are just like, over-the-road trucks, but much, much bigger. So the amount of water needed to cool the mass of that liquid must have been insane. Do you guys have hydrants? Did you get it shuttled? What were you doing?
So at the end of the day, the stats with this incident were that it took 28 fire departments from 2 different states. This is in a relatively remote area of Oregon, a town called Mosier. Very small fire department. I think they have less than 15 volunteer firefighters. Resources, to say the least, aren't really readily available. They had a few hydrants in town, but those are hooked to the town's water supply, so that wasn't going to be, able to last us a 10 to 12-hour event. So what we ended up doing is pulling water out of the Columbia River in a shuttle operation, as you alluded to. It took about 34 water tenders, and at the end of the day, about 1.5 million to 2 million gallons of water was flowed over that 10 to 12-hour period.
Piece of cake. If it's overtime, it's awesome. That's fantastic.
The town didn't have enough water to be able to supply the incident. Like, not saying anything against the town, it's just a huge volume of water. Just wrap your heads around that for anyone who's a structural house firefighter. Man, that's a lot of water.
Yeah, it's quite a bit. The town's water supply has a holding tank with a well at the top of the hill above the incident that supplied the town of approximately 1,000 of their drinking water or whatnot. So within a couple minutes of us plumbed into one of their hydrants, we had already dropped half of it. So that's when that plan came into effect. Hey, we need to do something different, and the collective unified command made that decision to find another route. So.
Attention Hazmat Nation, class is in session. FLIR, a global leader in CBRNE detection solutions, has recently announced a new educational resource named FLIR Primed. Primed is a free online tool that provides first responders with training videos, best practices, field checklists, and street truth. Throughout the initial 10-episode video series, Grant Coffey, a retired fire and rescue hazmat team coordinator and CBRNE expert of nearly 40 years, delivers industry insights and real-life experiences that keep first responders prepared. In addition, each episode concludes with a free field checklist or downloadable guide that responders can use immediately, like the Prime training poster that covers these key actions of prepare, recognize, input, monitor, experience, and decision. You can watch it now by visiting www.flir.com/primed.
So you took all this water and you're pouring it on, and your reason for that is what? Is to keep them cool, keep that steel cool?
Correct, because one of the things, again, with Bakken crude oil, we're hitting on it pretty hard, is we've seen a lot of these tank cars fail. They have those heat-induced tears where they're releasing all their product really fast, and it just makes a bigger issue. Now you have 28,000 gallons of Bakken crude shooting up out of a tank car, and now it's all over the place, environmental issues. So if you keep those cars cool enough and keep them from getting to that point where they're going to release their product, that's the main goal. The ones that have already split open have split open. Now let's protect those exposures just like we would on a structure fire or anything else.
So what was your firefighting priorities? Obviously life,
sure,
and then property, and then environment.
Sure.
Was there any other considerations in there?
As far as what, Bobby?
I'm just saying, like you had the river downrange.
Sure.
Was there any, as far as member or people that were on the rigs?
Sure.
Was that a consideration? I mean, the exclusion zone must have been enormous.
The exclusion zone was not as big as you thought. It was probably, relatively small. I mean, the evacuation radius for this incident was a half mile. The hot zone was, probably an eighth of a mile around the incident. And, as long as, folks were in appropriate respiratory protection, and the hazmat team was monitoring to make sure that the folks in the areas where they weren't wearing respiratory protection in that warm zone were safe, it was actually a pretty stable incident. These were the 1232, CPC 1232 tank cars, so they were jacketed. They weren't just the standard DOT 111 that doesn't have a jacket. So they took a lot of damage, and they provided us a little better protection or prevention of those heat-induced tears or whatnot.
So is a heat-induced tear, is that similar to a blevy? What's the difference in that?
So they're both what I would consider violent ruptures. But with that blevy, we all understand in the fire service what a blevy is. Typically associated with things under pressure, right? Your LPGs, propanes, butanes, things like that. With the heat-induced tear, you don't have a product that's under pressure, so it's not being forced into whatever container it's in. So Bakken crude oil just filled at whatever atmospheric temperature it's at, with some appropriate vapor space, just sits in there. So as it boils, as it gets hot, the failures associated with the heat-induced tears are just that metal getting really hot, expanding, and then like a hot dog on a barbecue, it develops a blister, and the blister cracks. With a blevy, you're going to see fragmentation, you're going to see, concussive shock wave, things like that. And with a heat-induced tear and things like crude oil, it opens up and it cracks. It's called an arrested crack, releases all that product, real violently. You see a big, fireball go up in the air. But if you look at pictures online, it's like a nozzle. It's going straight up and into the atmosphere, whereas a blevy is going to be more ground level and create a lot of damage. That kind of like, I don't know what the word is, like a crater in the ground. That's what we should think when we think blevy, yeah.
So that's got to be quite some sight. That's like a geyser of flames.
Sure, absolutely. It lasts for anywhere from 3 to 5 seconds. Here in Mosier, we didn't have a heat-induced tear. We just had a small gash in the side of one of the cars. It found an ignition point, and we just had a very large pool fire under 3 cars.
So this has obviously been a very big job for Oregon as a state, right?
Yeah.
As a locality. So what has this done for your pre-planning, your training, your equipment, identification? Have you guys made a lot of adjustments?
Sure. The main thing is my position. I'm the Hazmat Rail Coordinator, so my job is not only to work with our hazmat teams, but is to also work with firefighters and those awareness and operations level folks. Tell them not only about tank cars and crude oil, but talk about other hazmats that are transported over the railroad or whatnot. So we develop a 3-tiered kind of approach to this. We teach a 3-hour awareness class to your local, volunteer type firefighters, and then we teach an operations level, which is an 8-hour class. Folks wanting more in-depth knowledge on tank cars, hazardous materials, transported by railroad, and like locomotives. You get really down and dirty into some stuff. We climb on some tank cars. And then the 40-hour tank car specialist for our technicians, which is a technical level expertise on tank cars, the anatomy of them, pressure relief devices, utilization of C kits and all those other kits out there used for capping chlorine cars and hydrous ammonia, whatever it may be. Really in depth on the tank cars and railroad specific responses for hazmaters.
Nice. What would be some of the things that you walked away with as like a main lesson learned? Like you look back and you go, okay, I could have done this better. I could have done this better. Even though it all went really, really well,
Sure.
What did you guys pull out of those? This could have gone better, or we would do this better next time in your after action report.
So, I attended quite a few after actions because obviously with this incident, you had a lot of federal partners involved. You had EPA, FEMA was involved. You had your state agencies, Department of Environmental Quality, the State Fire Marshal's Office, the State Police, Office of Emergency Management. So there were various levels of after actions done. From the local level, the main thing is water supply, right? Making sure we have the appropriate water supply that's going to be sufficient for the duration of the incident. Not like, one water tender, 5 water tenders. This is going to be, more or less, anywhere to 1,000 to 1,500 GPM per tank car to keep those exposed tank cars cool. The second thing is level of training and understanding. We've generated a culture of fear associated with crude oil in the fire service. They've been called bomb trains and that they explode or whatnot. And that, makes firefighters hesitant and not understand what they're actually dealing with. So training, obviously, was a big takeaway. The local department that responded had been to a couple crude oil, had sent a couple of those folks to the crude oil training back in Pueblo, Colorado. And then I'd say from a larger scale level, when we're talking about technicians or whatnot, having the appropriate equipment. We have PIDs that are capable of seeing that benzene or whatnot, but it's not benzene-specific monitoring. The EPA and the railroad brought in benzene-specific monitors that they were using at the incident. And so us as the Fire Marshal's Office and hazmat teams collectively decided with our after action that we need that capability. So we went and purchased, or in the process of purchasing, they should actually be ordered here in the next couple of days, 13 PIDs that are benzene-specific capable.
Very nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let me ask you probably one of the last questions. We all use electronics a lot.
Sure.
What would you recommend as far as the listeners or people out there? Any specific apps that are available, training resources for hazmat rail incidents,
Sure.
books that you went to? Like, we come from the urban setting and we use certain books. Do you guys, what are the books or resources that you guys use?
Sure. So the main thing that I promote within all the fire service that has any railroad in it, whether you have a short line or a class 1 railroad, if you have a railroad coming through your area, you should have Ask Rail. It's available on the iTunes and the Android stores, and it's free. You go through the process of putting in the information like the railroad that's coming through your area, and they go through a small vetting process. But with that application, you can pull it up on your phone and type in the reporting marks and number on any car in the fleet of the railroad, and it'll tell you what type of commodity is in it, whether that car is loaded, unloaded, or a loaded or a residue car, and then it'll also show you the rest of the train. So you could see anything that train's carrying, if it's carrying multiple hazmats or whatnot. It's a great application. Ask Rail, 100%.
And that's something that you want to have ahead of time, right? Because it takes a little while to get qualified to have that app.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they do a small little vetting process. They give you a call or give your chief a call or just confirm who you are and who you're with or whatnot, because it's available for first responders only, because it is specific to different railroads, and they want to keep their information secure or whatnot. So they just want to make sure that you're who you say you are.
So if you have any rails going through your thing, go get Ask Rail. Do it before there's an incident, because you want to have that information at your disposal when that opportunity comes knocking.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Chad, thank you so much for your information. I have a feeling we're going to be having Chad on a couple more times because this is definitely going to generate questions. And if anybody has any specific questions for you, Chad, where can they get a hold of you?
Feel free. West Coast time. I know you guys are East Coasters. West Coast time. Call me before 5 o'clock. My number is 503-934-8212 is my desk number, and my email is chad.hawkins@state.or.us. If you have any questions regarding this incident, I can provide you a copy of the after action so you can see some 30,000 foot level kind of things that went, could have gone better as far as communications or whatnot. So any information I can provide folks related to the training or preparedness, what we've done here in Oregon, I'd love to share.
Fantastic.
Awesome,
well,
man.
Thank you very, very much, man. This is definitely something we're going to dive a little more into. We're going to have Chad back on the show, go into a little bit more depth. But, man, thank you for taking time and educating us on what you did and what you had.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chad.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the Hazmat Guys.
You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube channel at the Hazmat Guys. And take a moment to call our comment hotline at 843-628-1484.
We are always looking forward to your feedback about information or interesting incidents that you were part of. So send us a note at feedback@thehazmatguys.com.
And remember, guys, don't just get on the job. Get into the job.